In this video, I want to share some of the techniques I personally use while working in Substance Painter. I'll walk you through my Viewport setup, show some useful hotkeys, and demonstrate different methods for creating various effects, from simple surface details to more advanced material tricks. Whether you're just starting out or already experienced with Substance Painter, I hope you'll find something new and practical to improve your workflow. Let's start with the Viewport settings. First, change the environment to a studio one, preferably without any colored lighting. The most popular choice is Tomako Studio. Although it's not black and white, it doesn't affect the colors too much. Next, change the environment alignment from world to camera. In this mode, the environment map follows the camera position and lights up the areas you're currently looking at. Then, adjust the focal length. This is individual preference. I prefer when the lens doesn't distort the model too much, as it makes the proportions easier to read. You can set temporal anti-aliasing to maximum. It helps reduce the staircase effect along the models. Set anisotropic filtering to 8 and mipmap bias to 2. This affects the texture sharpness at a distance. Next, go to the shader settings and set them to very high. You can also choose ultra, but the difference between very high and ultra is minimal, and in a heavy scene, ultra might slow down the viewport performance. If ambient occlusion bothers you, you can tone it down. If you want more accurate ambient occlusion rendering, enable bent normals. That's it for the viewport settings. Quick object selection across different texture sets. Hold Ctrl plus Alt and right-click on an object. This automatically switches to the texture set that the object belongs to. Very convenient when you have many sets in the scene and can't always remember their names. Next, Alt plus left-click on the eye icon of a texture set. Isolates that set from others without switching to it. Alt plus Q isolates the objects of the current texture set. Let's move on. Change the blending mode on all texture channels in just a couple of clicks, for example when you need to apply sharpen to every channel. Simply change the blending mode on any channel. Right-click, choose Apply to all channels. Done. Next feature, isolating a single channel. Hold Alt and left-click on the channel you want to keep visible. And finally, sometimes you import dozens of textures. Instead of changing their type one by one, select all textures with Shift, set the desired type on one of them, and it will be applied to all selected textures. Let's look at some texturing techniques. We'll create a damaged mask for metals with parkerized or so-called gunmetal materials. As we can see in the reference, this type of coating gets damaged in a way that visually creates a grainy effect. Let's try to recreate that effect. Create a layer with pure metal. Add a black mask, and inside the mask, create a paint layer where we'll draw the damage. Add white noise and set its blending mode to subtract. Adjust the tiling to get the desired grain size, using the reference as a guide. Above it, add a histogram scan and tweak the position value to around 0.9 to 0.95. You can rename the paint layer to something like plus. By making the brush tip semi-transparent, we can start painting the damage. It's highly effective to use alphas based on real photos of surface damage. Another method I often use when working with generators. Add a metal edge wear generator. On top of it, add a paint layer. Fill the entire model with black. Change the blending mode to multiply. Now, by painting with white, you reveal the generator only in the areas where you need it. Alright, another cool feature is working with decals. Let's create a random decal in Photoshop. I'll be using a black and white alpha. It's easier this way to control color parameters and other channels. Save the decal to a folder. Now, drag and drop the decal onto our model in the spot where we want to place it. It landed a bit crooked. The angle from which you project the decal also matters. Let's adjust its. Now switch to Edit Vertices mode. We'll slightly modify the grid to make it easier to align the decal with the surface. Then go back to Edit Vertices and press the Surface Tool button. Now we can snap the decal's vertices to the object's surface. It is allowing us to position it more organically. This looks especially good on complex shapes and organic surfaces, for example, placing markings on cables and so on. There are endless ways to use it. Let's refine the look of our decal a bit. Another super useful feature is Auto Update Resources. In the bottom right corner of the Assets panel, click the button with the arrows. In the new window, check the boxes next to Asset Panel and Resources used in project. Open your previous decal in Photoshop. Let's change the text to something else. Now, just save file and go back to Substance Painter, and magic. This is especially handy when you have dozens of decals all over the model and need to quickly change a font, or when the logo design has been updated. You just save the PSD file and you're done. A few simple techniques for working with plastic. Let's create a mold seam on the AR-15 grip. Add a new layer, and in its mask, add a gradient linear 2 or 3, with transition from white to black both sides. Just because my grip isn't perfectly aligned to the axis, placing the gradient is a little bit tricky. Disable the repeat option. Adjust it so it forms a thin line but not absolutely sharp. Turn off the base color channel and enable the height. Place it along the center of the grip. On top of the fill layer, add a slope blur to create slight distortion. Then use a regular blur to soften the mask a bit and push it with levels to add contrast, make the line thinner. Done. If you want, you can refine it further with a brush so it doesn't look too uniform. Keep working with plastic. Let's make a damage mask. Add a new layer with a black mask and a paint layer. In the channels, enable only height. In the paint layer, draw the damage using alphas. Make the mask more contrasty to remove unnecessary noise. Add diffuse, slightly lighter than the base color. And glossiness, a bit more matte than the main glossiness. On top, add an anchor point. Rename the layer to base and duplicate it. Completely clear the mask, add a fill layer, and insert the anchor from the previous layer into it. On top of that, add a blur filter. Then add another fill layer above it, using the same anchor, but set the blending mode to subtract. Increase the height on the top layer and decrease it on the bottom one to create depth. The scratch looks noisy, so you can add blur to the base layer and also adjust it with levels on top so it reads better from a distance. You can continue painting your scratches by selecting the first one. Select the first base layer, go to Paint and keep painting. I'm not creating perfect damage here. I'm just demonstrating the tool that can help you make it more interesting. This plastic is quite durable, so deep scratches like these are not very common. The final result should rely on your references and artistic sense. The last part of the video will be a bit experimental. I want to add a rainbow effect on the metal around the welding seam. As you know, there are standard tools in Substance Painter that allow you to create a welding seam. Let's create a random curve. The idea is to add that rainbow effect that appears from metal heating around the seam. We already created the rainbow effect in the previous video. The link to it is in the description. So the first thing we need to do is extract the information from the mask of the created seam. Now blur this mask, expanding it around the seam. Since the rainbow effect doesn't appear directly on the seam, but only around its perimeter, we need to exclude the seam from the blurred mask. It's important to have a wide gradient range from white to black. This way we'll get the full color spectrum of heat tinting. The contour looks a bit too sharp in the center, so let's add some blur. Add an anchor point so we can use this mask later in the Tempering Colors Smart material. Instead of the default mask that comes with the Smart material, we'll use the one we just created. Right now we can see only yellow tones. That's because our mask isn't bright enough, so we need to increase its contrast. We can do that with levels and also subtract the seam itself from this effect. At maximum heating, the metal gives a light bluish color, almost white. So I want to adjust the contrast to bring out that white shade. We also need to get rid of the sharp edges, since they don't look natural. Well, this is already something closer to reality. We can also play with the blending mode, overlay, opacity. I don't quite like that the effect looks too uniform. In reality, when working with a welding torch, it can't look perfectly even. A hand might shake, or some areas might be overheated, some underheated. So let's add a procedural texture on top to break up that uniformity. I'm doing this for the first time, so I might not pick the right texture right away. I think some kind of noise will work best here. Something like this, more or less, I think. This is basically a ready-to-use tool for real objects, for weapons, or anything that requires a welding seam. I'll experiment a bit more with roughness since it's still an oxide layer. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. If you have any cool substance techniques, effect creation tips, or workflow optimization tricks, share them in the comments. Let's grow together.